Welcome, world, to Life, Love, and Wellness Global, a worldwide wellness movement. I am Reverend Sandy Rogers, and as the creator of this historic event, it is my pleasure to welcome you. We come together to bring you this historic event. We have practitioners, holistic practitioners, we have medical doctors, we have spiritual individuals. This event is so lovingly dedicated to my mother, Mrs. Barbara Dean Brown. And my mother taught me like 40 plus years ago about the importance and the meaning behind herbs. And she would always say, we don't know what they putting in those pills, so you better not, get hooked on prescription drugs. And so we listened to Mom, but not all of us paid attention. My sister, bless her heart, was diagnosed recently thereafter with asthma, and she was prescribed prednisone, which is a very powerful steroid. And my sister actually got hooked on steroids like someone out on the street kind of hooked, like on heroin or crack or something like that. And so my mom and my sister are both on the other side, living in the other dimension, but they're upholding me, and this is dedicated to their memory. So we don't want to come and make you change your mind about what you're doing. We just want to provide information to you, something different, so that you have options to choose from, so that you're not stuck. Because the environment that we now live in, the fast foods, the toxins in the air that we breathe and in the water that we drink, and the processed foods, and all of that is causing havoc on this precious body temple. So God created our bodies to heal themselves, but they can only heal themselves when they're fed and they're nourished and they're stress-free. And so the 60 or so or more experts that we have are bringing you this worldwide wellness movement in an attempt to share their testimonies and their information with you. So we have from age 14 on up. I don't even know what the oldest age is. I think 88 or something. So you see, that's a wide range of knowledge that we're bringing you. And so we hope that you come and that you get all the knowledge that you need to affect a positive change on your life, and share this with others. It's free, it's online, and so we're just so thankful that you decided to be a part of our listening community, the viewing community, and we certainly appreciate you for giving us your time of day and your energy and your efforts to being with us and to being a part of this historic event. We have pulled together people of color for you, by you, right? So we want to make sure that you understand that we too, melanated people with color, can enjoy, practice, and participate in some of these modalities that others have been doing for centuries, and that is pretty new to our community. So we talk about Qigong, we talk about meditation, yoga, spiritual work from a different perspective than religion. So we talk about the spirituality aspect. We talk about abuse in the families. We talk about all kinds of subjects because we know that in our communities there are layers and layers and layers and layers of stuff that we never talk about that's causing a negative effect on our bodies and its healing process. So we address it, whatever it is, and we hope that you will benefit from the many experts that we have, and that you walk away with lots of knowledge and lots of new information, and that you become fully empowered to share information with others. So thank you for being with us. We love you and we bless you, and we look forward to doing this again. But thanks for being here with the first one. We appreciate you.
Life, love, and wellness. Life, love, and wellness.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Life, Love, and Wellness Global, a worldwide wellness movement. So today we're honored and blessed to have Dr. William Richardson with us. And I first met Dr. Richardson in the beginning of 2015 when I had suffered a skin condition that no one else could help me to resolve, and so it's just getting worse and worse, and I was unable to wear shoes, and it was really an awful situation. And I was blessed to be introduced to Dr. Richardson. And what intrigued me most about how Dr. Richardson works his practice is I thought I was going to go in and he was going to write me a prescription. I mean, that's all the other doctors do. But he asked so many questions, and we had a very long interview. Dr. Richardson got to know me as a person, which is so unusual in this medical day and age, because people just want to, get your symptoms and write you a prescription and then you're done. But that's not how Dr. Richardson operates, and I believe his holistic approach is so needed in our community for us to do a complete healing process. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the life of Dr. William Richardson. And Dr. Richardson, would you just briefly tell us some background information on you, how you got started and who you are and what, okay?
I'd be glad to. Hello, everyone. And I always like to say I'm representing ACPM.net. That stands for American Clinics for Preventive Medicine, or Advanced Clinics for Preventive Medicine. And I started out wanting to be a doctor at the age of 3 because my father was a doctor. His father was my grandfather was a coal and ice deliverer in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania from Mississippi. And so I'm a doctor for 3 reasons: to help people, to make a legitimate living for my family, and to understand and study science. That's what I like. I especially like helping people as much as possible. So that's been a passion from the beginning of my thoughts about going into medicine. So I went the traditional route of going into medical school, and before that I studied biochemistry, physics, math, science, African dance, guitar, bass, yoga, meditation. So I had a nice, well-rounded background going into medical school. And when I was in medical school, I remained holistically orientated, if you will. In medical school, I studied Kung Fu, Jiu-Jitsu, meditation, Chinese medicine, tennis, guitar. We just had lots of fun, but really studied hard. So medical school gives you an excellent background. But I wasn't satisfied with the therapeutics they offered, so I supplemented it by learning herbology, reading books like Back to Eating Jethro Kloss, herbal books. My friends were kind of hippies in and out of medical school, so we'd experiment on different herbs to see the effects on our bodies. And so that fascinated me, and so when I was studying at the University of Pittsburgh after medical school, a patient gave me the opportunity. He asked me to create a program for him to get rid of his diabetes with no drugs. Well, I didn't tell my professors, and I wrote my first lifestyle plan, and it worked. His sugars were in the 400s, and we got him down to under 90. And I was amazed. I didn't even tell my professors, because I learned by then you have to be careful what you tell superiors if they don't know something. And so that went on, and I moved to Atlanta in '84 after 5 years of training in preventive medicine, internal medicine, emergency medicine, herbology, and different things. And I started seeing patients in my car because there was nowhere else to sit down. And my friend said, hey, you need to get an office. So I did, and that's how the ACPM.net was born. And I've been seeing patients ever since 1986 in Atlanta. And so we've had great results oftentimes, and lots of fun and lots of love between myself and the community at large, and my patients in particular.
Well, wonderful. It sounds like you really did a lot of study in a number of areas that treat the whole person. Is there a particular category that you would label your practice in? I know you said it's advanced medicine.
Yeah, well, basically, it's holistic primary care, and then people come in with problems and they want results. So the reason I exist and my clinic exists is because we many times are able to get results other doctors can't, because we look at things so holistically, so multifactorially. And actually, right now, I'm training three other doctors to come into my clinic, and they're getting their diets together, getting discipline, and learning my protocols. We have a nurse practitioner as well. So we're expanding.
That's excellent. Your work is so much needed in our community, especially with the number of diseases that seem to be just popping up. And I believe that it may be a result of our lifestyles and the foods that we eat, the air that we breathe, the lack of exercise. But I'm so impressed with the methods and the methodologies that you use. I remember that part of my problem was in having heavy metals.
Well, it's a heavy metal test that you measure after you take a particular treatment called chelation therapy. And you would wonder how heavy metals, what these toxic metals have to do with skin problems or other inflammatory problems. But they are pro-inflammatory chemicals. In other words, the lead and cadmium in our systems stimulate inflammation in arteries, cause hardening of the arteries. They stimulate inflammation in the skin and in the bowels and anywhere else they can go. I've got people with neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's, and I'm working with them to get rid of the heavy metals so at least we can stop the progression of that disease.
And so the heavy metals, just so people understand, you can be affected from cavities or fillings that's in the
Correct.
Cavities. For me, back in my 20s, I was on a prescription medicine called Tagamet that was pretty new on the market back then, and because I took it for so long, it was in my system. What are some of the other ways that a person can be contaminated, so to speak, with heavy metal?
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the amalgam fillings are 52%, the so-called silver fillings are 52% mercury. You can get that also from contaminated seafood. We've inundated our environment with lead. Modern people have 10,000 times more lead than pre-industrial people, 10,000 times. And they didn't really have to put in the gas, that was just greed. And modern people have that lead, they have that cadmium, which comes from industrial pollution. The powers that be, they brag, hey, we put out, instead of 475 million metric tons of arsenic this year, we cut it down a few million tons. I mean, so it's very interesting. And also the showers we take. Taking showers, the more showers you take in America, the more cancer you can get. So it's important to use shower filters, we sell shower filters. You get them at health food stores, hardware stores, because you get more pollution taking a shower than you do drinking polluted water.
Wow.
So it's a lot of things to be aware of and look out for. Heavy metal, our chelation therapy that we use for heavy metal detoxification is a primary treatment for hardening of the arteries. I remember I started doing that 25 years ago, and one of my cardiology buddies, he said, well, it may work, Richardson, but it sounds like snake oil to me. And now I'm getting ready to send him an article from the American Journal of Cardiology where it has chelation therapy featured. I remember when I was in medical school, there was a woman who had breast cancer, and I was part of a team rounding in a hospital in Philadelphia. And I was the youngest member of the team, and the other team members said they couldn't think of anything to do to help her at all. They couldn't think of a thing. I said, well, how about 10 grams of vitamin C intravenously, IV? And they looked at me like I committed a sin. I had to go in front of the dean and say why I even wanted to be a doctor. Now IV vitamin C is in every major city in this nation and most cities in the world.
Why does that new ideas and new approaches threaten? You may not be able to answer it overall, but in your opinion, why are the traditional methods threatened? Because it's written, and you just have to follow the protocol as is written, and there's no room for a brilliant mind such as yours to be able to come up with something different.
Yeah, that's a great question. I always said these types of evils are associated with fear, greed, and ignorance. Fear, greed, and ignorance. And what I tell my patients is that I want to make it so you don't need me anymore. I want to make it, what really turns me on in medicine is getting rid of things so people don't need me anymore. And I tell people I'll be your gardener, your guitar player, your moving man. I'm not attached to you being sick, and I'm really not. I think doctors should. Well, at our clinic, we also sell health. I have a elder patient, dear patient, and she said, hey, how can I live to be 125? I said, well, you need shower filters. So I sold her a couple of shower filters. So I do sell a lot of herbs, a lot of equipment and things like that. So it gives me more time to sit down and talk to patients. I think doctors in general should learn how to make money in various ways so you're not dependent on just using prescription drugs. I think you should be innovative and be willing to be flexible. I'm talking to all the potential practitioners out there. In a way, this is shocking, but I don't necessarily believe in holistic alternative medicine. I believe in good medicine that's holistic and has alternatives. Because you mean to tell me that right now, in 2017, the major hospitals in this great city of Atlanta still are selling Big Macs, burgers, steaks, and all the foods that obviously cause cancer and heart disease. Is that alternative medicine, or just bad medicine, or just greed, or just fear, or ignorance?
It's a great question you coming back at us with, so we appreciate that. And so, for the most part, we are given a prescription as to how much foods and different items we should eat, with your recommended daily allowances or your daily value of what you should, but it's not really slanted at living foods or foods that will help a body. But it seems like it's another one of those situations that create bad health or diseases
wealth,
in the body.
And wealth for certain segments of society. So absolutely, the more processed the food is, the more money you can make from it. So the ultimate processed food is meat, and then junk food. And don't forget, these foods create chemicals in the body that take you from just ordinary pleasure to very exciting pleasure. When you eat junk food full of calories and everything, it takes you up. But what comes up has to come down, and they don't excite you anymore. And when you eat healthy food, it's not as exciting. So you almost have to go through a cleansing and a fast so you can rebound your taste buds, and ordinary healthy food can taste good again. So unhealthy food is like drugs and can be addictive.
Yeah, I learned that on one of the documentaries in The Office. Dr. Richardson makes sure that as you're sitting and taking the chelation treatments that you're educated as well with documentaries, and so he has a vast library of different documentaries. And I believe it was Super Size Me, where the guy that went on a 30-day diet of only eating McDonald's, and whenever one of the people, the associates at McDonald's would ask him if he wanted supersized, he would take it. And he was talking about how it affected, his penis and just all kinds of the heart, the chest, and everything.
That gets into a great discussion, because when I went to Africa initially in 1990, I met my friend's father, who was 96 years old and still taking care of all 6 of his wives in every way.
Wow.
And his sister was 122, still walking 2 miles a day and gardening. So I was very impressed. I learned a lot in Africa, because Africa is important, because that's where people originated from. People should study the lifestyles and behavior of Africans, especially living the indigenous way. And then I come to America, back to America, and in my practice, I'm meeting 47-year-old men who have erectile dysfunction. And actually, the United States has less than about 7 or 8% of the world's population, but they have 1/3 or greater than 33% of the world's male impotent population. So why is that? In fact, erectile dysfunction even porn can cause erectile dysfunction because you can wear your brain cells out with that. But the regular erectile dysfunction is most likely related to hardening of the arteries, and that's related to cigarettes, diabetes, out of control, animal products, and that sort of thing. Same with all the Alzheimer's or the Alzheimer's-like diseases. That's related to hardening of the arteries. If you keep your heart healthy, you're going to keep your penis healthy, you're going to keep your brain healthy. So that's really, really important. And also, I think a lot of people should realize, especially commercial chicken, is effeminizing men. It's causing men to get gynecomastia or grow breasts. It's causing boys to play chicken, especially commercial chicken. It's causing boys to play with girls' toys. And it goes in the uterus of women and effeminizes male brains, so they come out half effeminized. So this is serious stuff, folks. So eating meat is not manly.
Yeah.
Gorillas don't eat it. Gorillas eat greens as a primary food and fruits and things like that. And they eat it raw, of course, so that's powerful. But even if you eat cooked food, really try to avoid the animal products, no doubt.
That's so amazing to hear you say that, especially from a society that say you should have meat and that's the only way that you can get the protein that you need in your body. So one of the ways that I like to address that, and if you would please expound on it, is that we get protein from animals only because the animals have eaten the grass. They've eaten the greens, and that's where the proteins really come from.
That's right, and the iron in red meat really isn't good for you. It's actually harmful. It's better to get iron from dark green leafy vegetables. So actually, per calorie, the number one food in the world that gives humans protein are greens per calorie. So you have to eat a whole lot. So gorillas eat, they eat 50 to 60 pounds of fruits, vegetables, seeds, and nuts per day. They eat 22 pounds of greens per day. And 1 pound of greens one bunch of kale isn't even a pound. So these animals are eating lots of greens. Now, so that we would be eating 5 hours a day if we just ate raw greens and fruit, but we can make smoothies, and we also have things like sweet potatoes and things that have more concentrated calories, so you don't have to spend all your time eating. You can eat that raw or you can bake it, but of course you kill it. You kill the life force when you do cook things. Sometimes it can make certain nutrients more available, but generally you should eat mostly raw food. Raw greens are wonderful, and it's good to mix it with your saliva. No matter how you consume greens, take your time if you make a smoothie and chew your smoothie. Don't put too much fruit in because that'll free the fructose in fruit and cause problems with sugar accumulation. Mostly eat. But it really, I know from my personal experience, eating that way, plant-based, lots of raw food, good balanced food, it really makes you feel really good. And you don't want the unnatural false highs of meat and sugar and grease and all that stuff.
Yeah, because I think you took an example from Baba over in Africa, because you're in your later 60s and you can still party and hang with your children.
Well, actually mid-60s.
Okay,
but,
okay.
No, I love dancing anyway, and I took African American dance in school. So I played bass for the Pittsburgh African American Dance Company for years. I think dancing is one of my favorite things to do. There's no doubt about that.
And so that movement is extremely important also.
It really is.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. One should stretch, do movement in the form of walking, fast walking, or maybe occasionally running. And weightlifting, all those sorts of things, push-ups, those sorts of things. Now, of course, ancient people naturally did that, but we have to artificially do that because sometimes our biggest effort may be reaching down to turn on a computer. So we do have to do that. Also do meditation. I went to a meditation camp for 10 days, and that accelerated that part. So it's really great to have a great lifestyle. Because like you were saying before, Sandy, 65% of your health is related to your lifestyle. 21% is related to environment. And that can be psychosocial environment as well. And then 14% of your health is related to genetics and, quote, appropriate health care, which would mean, if you come in with a blood pressure of 280 over 180, you probably may need some medicine. Or if you are having chest pain and your cholesterol is 540, you may need some medicines to help control, the nitroglycerin and all that sort of stuff. But then you can get weaned off of that most of the time if you adopt a natural lifestyle. And that's what we love doing, is taking people off of medications in our clinic whenever possible. So we've taken people off of 6 medicines, 7 medicines, 5 medicines, 4 medicines, so we really get off on taking people off of medicines. I mean, if we put people on medicine, it's only because it's medically necessary at the time. But if you start high blood pressure medicine, you do not have to stay on it forever. You can wean off of it. Because in the year 1900, there wasn't one case of high blood pressure found in the whole continent of Africa. Not one case of obesity, diabetes. Most cancer just wasn't there. The top 4 cancers in America are lung, breast, colon, and prostate. In a 1994 study by medical missionary Dr. Burkitt in South Africa, the rural blacks living the natural way, they didn't have one case of those cancers. No ulcerative colitis. And they ate a lower fat diet, about 5 to 14% fat. So now we talk about the paleo diet and all that sort of thing. Well, that is for a certain time period when the ice age hit in certain areas. They may have been forced to eat animal products, but most of the world, in fact, Asia and Africa were traditionally spared the ravages of modern industrial diseases because their diets were not meat and refined food based. Unfortunately, that's changing. And we have to get the word out to Africa and Asia as well, to hold on to some of the traditions that quite well work.
So is there an intersection with modern allopathic, neuropathic, and ancestral healing and or medicine?
Absolutely. A doctor in about 1979 from Syria told me when he was a boy in Syria, he got an infection on his arm. And he went to, quote, little old lady, which are very wise, beautiful, right? In a basement somewhere, she had moldy bread concoctions and put it on his arm and made it feel better. But his mother said, "You can't go there. You have to go to the experts." And took him to a hospital. Then we had chemicals that burned him, hurt him, didn't work. He went back to the healer using moldy bread on her own. Of course, that moldy bread was penicillin. And so the so-called alternative medicine of today can be mainstream medicine in the future. But of course, then they took that penicillin, used it for viruses and everything, and made superbugs. So the ancestral healing, see, let's put it in perspective. The best things about modern medicine are 2 things, and an African doctor explained this while we were philosophizing. He was a cancer specialist, and I was treating an African woman. And he just happened to be, Nigerians are extremely intelligent, Africans in general, so many of them are doctors and everything else. But we were talking about it, and he said, when I analyzed it, the 2 things about so-called modern medicine that are superior are diagnostic ability, and sterility. If you get ready to operate on the brain, you want sterility. Of course, ancient Africans, they did C-sections thoroughly. They used banana wine. They sewed the person up. They did it successfully. In fact, English people sent expeditions to Africa before it was so messed over and ruined to learn how to do that, to take it back to England to perfect their surgery. So the whole point is a shaman, or let's say a healer or a medicine man in most indigenous cultures, it could prevent or treat about 95% or maybe 96 or 7% of the modern diseases that bother us so much now. Now, as far as major trauma, modern diagnostic techniques and surgery you can't beat. But as far as the multiple sclerosis, the psoriasis, the heart disease, the cancers, just the indigenous diet alone would prevent a lot of that. And the lifestyle, because of the more, let's say, stable family environments and all that sort of stuff, would prevent a lot of diseases. I mean, it's no mistake that Richard Pryor got multiple sclerosis when he married and divorced 6 times. You know how much stress that is? Then blew himself up with cocaine. So these types of things can shock the immune system and start autoimmune disorders. I've studied this. Many people have autoimmune disorders. Many people, because it's very chaotic and stressful in the modern environment. I've been to African villages, and you have no idea how the culture is. In fact, you won't get a glimpse, in my opinion, of normal humanity until you get to an African village, sit down and shut up. Meaning, be humble and try to learn something. Now, you may know some things, but they know things too. So that's how I look at things. You can learn something from a wino, but certainly you can learn something from a Chinese medicine healer or a Chinese grandmother. You can learn a lot of things from grandmothers. I learned a lot from older people, and I use it psychosocial things.
Thank you so much for answering that, because one of the intentions and goals of Life, Love, and Wellness Global is to bring information for the common person to be able to incorporate some of these ideas and thoughts, learning and wanting to learn more, the knowledge. So to peak that with the information, and you're certainly sharing a lot of the ancestral part of that, where it's not incorporated into anything that we learn now. Yeah.
We've lost a lot of knowledge. Some of the older people knew what to do for everything, and then I've seen modern nurses actually criticize younger women who didn't know this or came to the emergency room. I said, well, before this culture took over, their ancestors knew how to do everything, and I criticized them back. But yeah, no, we have to be open-minded, and not basic nutritional knowledge is important. Exercise, how to love and take care of yourself. I think family structure is important, and that's deteriorated a lot, and you can tell the after effects of our children and all the little I call them loose booty clubs around. I think they're absolutely horrible reflection of manhood in general and womanhood. I think that's the wrong direction. Don't know what to do about that. It's a culture that a lot of people are gripped up in, and they don't even know what I consider, let's say, a more, I could say normal human culture, but they don't know the basics of how to live. So all these things are important. And remember, everybody's a healer, especially mothers and fathers, especially mothers. So we should all know basic herbology. You should know what herbs to use to calm the stomach, to bring a fever down, to cause bowel movements, that sort of thing. And we should really know a lot about childbirth, because we never know. If you're pregnant and you're not around a hospital, you better know something.
That's true. That's true. So that was a good lead in. So this question is one that really stirs up a lot in me, because it's something that we don't address on a regular basis, if ever. So in your view, how can we include, improve, or address sexual wellness in our communities? We have issues that remain unresolved, even a lot of times unspoken. So how do we go about the healing process?
Yeah, that's a great point. I have to still go back to, let's say, ancient societies. It's very interesting. Sex at that time was only associated with long-term commitment, marriage. Child making was only associated with marriage. And if you were getting married, a child was expected because there was no real birth control. So they would actually start feeding the couple foods to make the baby stronger, thinking a baby was coming. But now, with the birth control may be important to control the population, explosions to an extent, but of course it's been used for dire purposes as well. I think that when Christopher Columbus first came to America, it's well known that there was a lot of molesting going on, and he was killing babies and using females, taking females back to Europe as sex slaves. So that's never been corrected, in my opinion. And then over here, slave masters molested men and women, as we know. So that has never really been corrected. Even when the slave master gave money to a male who could impregnate females randomly, and then our family structures were broken up. So that has to be acknowledged. Somebody has to take a stand, and there are people who do. Even people you may be surprised with, trying to maintain their family structure, especially when there's children. So it's a complex question. I do have a mating handout, and I'd like to share those concepts with you.
Sure.
In ancient societies, two families got together to make a couple. In this society, a couple gets together and tries to make a family. We should, the different chakras, the crown, the third eye, the throat. So that's to the Godhead, awareness, communication, awareness, clairvoyance, communication in the throat chakra. Heart chakra is judgment. Under that's the solar plexus, which is emotions. Under that is creativity, procreativity, or sexual. And the last one is the anal root chakra, which is willpower. So that shouldn't be messed with. So we should mate from the head down. If you can't see eye to eye, don't even kiss. So, for instance, Steve Harvey has it right finally about talking about waiting 3 months before you get heavily physical, even not even intercourse, but just even heavy physicality, because that gives you time to communicate with a person, to figure out how you want to raise children and all that sort of stuff. Sex shouldn't be thought of so much recreationally, because that's a problem that causes problems. Treat the women like you would want your mother and sister to be treated. If we all did that, that would be helpful as well. So mate from the head down. The last thing to touch are the genitals. So that's why the church hug is here up. Once you get emotional and sexual, then it's hard to go up and try to straighten things out. So mate from the head down. And another principle, fathers should be around to help the mother raise the children, and also to screen the suitors of his daughters. So some young guy came by and wanted to date my daughter, and I told him in front of him, his mother, my wife, and my children and my sons, I said, my daughter's a virgin. I expect her to stay a virgin. Is that understood? But if there's no father at home to do that, like there was in traditional African cultures, there was pretty much always a father to go through. Then they can just come and date the girl, and anything can happen without that type of resistance. And then I also believe that sex should be associated with long-term commitment. Well, that's said in all these scriptures and books, but a lot of times it's not done because there's so many and plentiful people to have sex with. But look at it this way. If you see all these beautiful trees, you can't run up and climb every tree. You look like a fool. Same with the women. And there are a lot of fools out there when you look at women. As a man, I'm talking, because I am a man, so that's how I look at things. And then I believe that we should either be virgin, celibate, if we had sex and don't have a maid, true monogamous, or polygynous. A lot of people hate polygyny like black people hate nappy hair. Well, that's a problem. I think that can be abused as well. Most of us aren't ready to do it, and most women aren't willing to do it. Yet it happens anyway because most women who aren't mated aren't sitting there twiddling their thumbs. They're going after your man, or they're going after Loose Booty Club. Your so-called man is going there, because I really don't respect that much, to just be blunt. So either virgin, celibate, monogamous, and polygynous. And I know, yeah, when I went to Africa, I saw a lot of that in 1990. That is, I saw polygyny, and a lot of people, most people were married. I didn't meet but one unmarried older woman, and she was a widow. At least everybody was mated. I'm not saying it was perfect either, but there was control. The children grow up better. They're watched more easily. So I think there's some benefits to that, because what are you going to do? There's usually excess women because men are crazy. They have high testosterone. They're in wars, this and that. They die earlier. In fact, one time I gave a speech at a nursing home, and there were 42 women and 2 men left. So, there you go.
Yes.
But the point is that with that type of structure, then the children are potentially better taken care of if people are holistic within that structure. It can be bad too. There's jealousy and this and that. But I'm just saying there are advantages potentially. And besides, what are you going to do with excess women? If you're an African tribe and there's 100 men and 150 women, over here, we know what we do with the women over here. Cheat on them, send them to Loose Booty Clubs. You have other opportunities and orientations you can try and whatnot. Over there, they were women and they had a respectable family structure. I meet so many women in my practice who've been cheated on, now they're divorced or this or that. And it's absolutely ridiculous to go through that. Even I know people who, I've heard of people who, a man went and killed his girlfriend and then came and shot his wife. I mean, and when I was in Africa, this gentleman, he said, "This is my wife, and this is my wife, and these are my children. What is your business?" Nobody was shooting anybody. So I guess we learned a lot from our invaders. That's all I can say about it. So, and as far as touching children, I think perpetrators have been perpetrated on a lot, and I think that started in a certain cave somewhere, that cave culture in a cold environment. There was all types of things going on. The more meat you eat, the more promiscuity there probably is, because it artificially raises hormones. And like I said, it can effeminize men. So maybe that explains certain things.
Wow.
Yeah.
As a medical doctor, do you recommend or talk to your patients about having normal conversations around sex with their children? I know a lot of households do not have that, maybe from lack of knowing the words to use.
Yes.
But it's not taught, and so children are teaching each other.
Yeah, even, and I criticized even my children's music. I think it's more immature, because back in so-called my day, we used to listen to the same songs as adults listened to, so the music was mature, complex, but the music's become less mature because children want their own thing. They're all listening to that phone. But yes, absolutely, I think it's really important for conversations about sex to happen. Now, of course, in manhood and womanhood training, that was automatically taken care of. So we have to mimic that one way or the other. And I have 4 sons and 2 daughters, and I certainly have had discussions about sex with all of them, in protection, if they should be told how to protect themselves, how to really value a real relationship and not just sexual partners and such. So I think it is important. But one of the main things adults can do is demonstrate normal human behavior, and I'm afraid that we have done a poor job with that.
Yeah, you and your wife have done an outstanding job with showing how that love grows and how you can respect and honor each other and not necessarily agree all the time, but still have that basic trust and respect. And that's something that doesn't always appear between relationships. So, in a marriage or a union of two people that have a child, I prefer marriage, but just keeping it real, if the two adults are not mature and not providing a healthy environment for the child, what would be your advice to?
Wow, that's so complex. The way I always look at it, though, if you make a child and you're living with someone, you're definitely married.
Okay, right.
Once
right.
you have sex, I mean, you exchange a lot, so that's a marriage. But anyway, if they're not mature, yeah, I think they need to do meditation, yoga, eat correctly to keep their hormones checked. Just really check it out. I've had men come in who initially they had one child somewhere and they were depressed because the woman they were, quote, loving, at least physically, was pregnant, had a baby. I said, man, look, check your manhood, and he's all right now, but I had to check him, and he's very proud of his child and taking care of the woman. Now, the whole thing is when you're working, taking care of a woman or you're a woman working with a man, remember to mate from the head down, first of all. Mate from the head down. And that's going to be important. Also, you're going to I guess the West says, fall in and out of love all day long sometime, and with more stress, like we have children, business, and that. That creates more stress in the relationship. But I went through a Yoruba wedding, and my priest had me bring a rock, and he had me bring cotton, and he had me bring lemon juice and honey. And he said, sometimes life is hard like this rock. It's not your fault or your fault. As long as you can remember that, you can stay married. Sometimes it's soft and easy like cotton. Sometimes it's sour like that lemon. Sometimes life or marriage is sour. And sometimes it's sweet. And if you remember that, and you remember that it's not your fault or your fault, then you can stay married. So people go into marriage sometimes thinking it's all going to be honey and cotton and sex and rock and roll. It's not like that. That's unrealistic. People need to have their own healthy hobbies. Like mine is guitar. I love playing guitar. I love just walking in the woods. I love talking to strangers, stuff. My wife, she has her thing. She loves talking to people too. And then she loves walking, and she loves preparing food, and she has her passions and things. I think people need to have their own passions, not sexual passions, because sex should be associated with relationships. If you're bad enough to have another sexual passion, then that means you need multiple marriage. But if you ain't bad enough, then you need to play your guitar, play conga drums, and chill. But if that's, either way, if you get one marriage or multiples, it's still going to be pressures and problems. In fact, more than one is double pressures. As far as pure sex, heck, prostitutes are cheaper than marriage if that's all you want. But I didn't get married just to have sex. But we do have 6 children. So,
and I so appreciate you for keeping it so real. If you would, just some discussion around, a lot of females don't understand that by having multiple sexual partners, they're actually attracting all of this energy and retaining a lot of the energy from the men that they have had. So if you could just, because that's something we don't talk about.
Viruses too. The number one cause of death, unfortunately, in black females in America is AIDS, from age 22 to 44. So I once met in an emergency room a person, a male, who was HIV positive. He came in with gonorrhea, and if you meet me in an emergency room somewhere, of course I won't. I don't tell your name or anything, but I always ask, how many sexual partners have you had in the last 12 months for you to come in here with a legitimate STD, sexually transmitted disease? This particular person said they had 18 partners. I said, oh. And they had already had AIDS. They had a human papillomavirus-induced rectal cancer, because the AIDS virus can weaken your immune system, and something like HPV virus can cause cancer. So he had that cured and everything. I think he was on AIDS meds. And I said, well, you had 18 sexual partners. I was all calm. I said, well, were they women men or both? And he said both. And he coming in with the clap, which is gonorrhea, and so he's not using so much. But I said, do you use protection? Because he is HIV positive. He said no. My next thought was, how can I get one of them 45s and put to his head? Of course, better put glasses on. Don't want the juice to get in my eyes and pull the trigger. I mean, who are these women opening their legs up to this man? Because he's a little cute? Really?
Mm-hmm.
This is absolutely ridiculous. So it's even broken down in Africa now, with all the missionaries and everything talking about, the kind of, frankly, a particular style of marriage. But I'm not going to say what I could have said. I don't think that would be good for this. But let's just say, what was your original question? I really went off on that.
About women with multiple partners and actually carrying their energy.
It's not helping at all. It does. Every time you do have sex with someone, you exchange their energy. And you have to deal with that. And not only energy, see, you can get viruses and things. You can get about 50 organisms can be transmitted sexually, causing 200 different diseases.
Wow.
50 organisms. AIDS 1, AIDS 2, herpes 1, herpes 2, condyloma accumulata, chancre, chancroid, syphilis 1, syphilis 2, syphilis 3, musculosum contagiosum. You can get all this stuff from sex, right? Unless you're all virgins, which used to be that way in the ancient world. But so you can exchange that. But just think, all the psychic bugs you can get, all the history of molestation or this weirdness or that, and all this weird stuff you're getting. So you really need to screen people very well and not let them into your temple. Find ways. The way you can move sexual energy is because it'll get stagnant if you just concentrate in the genitals, is through meditation, yoga, stretching. The areas of the pelvis are very important. It's almost as good as having sex, but not quite. So, but if you get into habits of that, that would really be important. Because men, frankly, were evolved to be promiscuous, and women have evolved generally to be choosy. But you can't be choosing and choosing and choosing and choosing, because you're going to get too much energy like that. It's really not good to do that. And some societies, they actually marry early, so they don't have to worry about it. Like Mahatma Gandhi, he got married at the age of 13. So when all those hormones were rising, he had a proper output or input for that. Sorry. And so he didn't have to worry about it. He could do his meditation and things with no guilt. And studies have also shown when a man has sex with his committed partner or wife, his testosterone actually goes up. But if he has masturbation, there's no kick of testosterone. It has been shown if a man has, let's see, if he has sex with his wife or his committed partner, he gets a benefit to his heart. But if he's just out there dealing with a prostitute or something real quick, not his wife, he gets a little decrease of benefit or opposite of benefit to his heart. So it's, as usual, it's good to be good, actually. You entangle yourself also, like I was trying to say, not only physically, but psychically. Reminds me, I met a woman who, in my practice, who was over 65, who was celibate. And I saw something in her lab. I said, I better check your HIV test. And sure enough, it was positive. And it was because her globulins were up without having abnormal liver function tests for all your medical people out there. And I checked the HIV test and it was positive. She said, and then I checked her CD4 count and it was under 200, which officially means she has AIDS. She's walking around with AIDS and don't even know it. And she said, I had sex with a guy 15 years ago, and then in a week I found out he was homeless and I stopped. And I always said, dang, I could have got AIDS from that. Well, guess what? You did. So the proper way to mate, or you meet a homeless guy who's cute or something, that's fine. Or even any guy who's cute, they can be rich. Hey, they can be preachers these days, as we know in Atlanta. But anyway, you mate from the head down. You get to know the person, and you hold court with your judgment. And hey, you need to get HIV tested, maybe a hepatitis C test, and maybe a syphilis test, and then we can talk. And if those tests, especially HIV, comes back positive, then you can make a choice. You can still be their friend. We're all friends, but you may not choose to mate with them on a physical level, or you may. But at least you know what risk you got and what precautions to take. You got to mate from the head down. It can save your life.
I love that. It gives you such a visual. We don't have to worry about what did Dr. Richardson say? What did Dr. Richardson say? You kept showing us, and so we have that visual in our mind. So I thank you so much.
Yes.
So Dr. Richardson, is there any last words of wisdom and advice you would like to leave for the audience? We're embarking upon education to increase the quality of health and wellness within our communities. And so is there any additional information that you would like to leave with our audience?
Well, the wisdom of hard work, the wisdom of commitment, including committed relationships, commitment to your children. If you help your children, you're going to help yourself. If you help someone else, and if you have discipline, it's going to bounce back on you. So it's always good to be good. Knowledge is very important. Wisdom is very important. So we have to work at that. We have to stabilize ourselves financially by loving ourselves, supporting great businesses within our family, our network, and those sorts of things. So we have a lot of work to do, and we don't have time for a lot of the foolishness going on right now. And so it's very important that we eat correctly, go to bed correctly, have sex correctly. We need to do things well so we don't face the consequences that I see so often in my practice. We have a website, acpm.net. There's a lot of knowledge there. We have videos up, examples of how you can help yourself. One of the main things I do in my practice is to get people on the correct diet, especially lots of green smoothies and plant-based food, because no matter what else I do, whether it's chelation therapy for heart or artery disease, whether it's high-dose vitamin C for cancer, all that's going to work better with a holistic diet. I have people with cancer walking around looking like rock stars because they adopted a plant-based diet, and they're doing a lot of holistic therapies with us. Injections, some of them, we use as much natural things as we can. We don't discourage people from taking surgeries or different medicines or chemicals or even chemo if necessary. But we really stress doing the other. Just look at it this way. If you have a sore throat, you may take penicillin, but you also may take echinacea, golden seal, gargle with salt water, throat lozenges, on and on and on. There's 100 things that you can do. If you have to take a pharmaceutical, just look at it as a sliver of what you do. And if the other things become strong enough, you may be able to decrease that pharmaceutical and wean off of it. That's the idea. And we have to respect and love ourselves. Like the rappers say, check yourself before you wreck yourself. So again, our website is acpm.net, and check us out. I'm Dr. William Richardson.
And thank you so much. We certainly appreciate your dedication to wellness.
You're welcome.
Love and wellness.
what I need.